Karen walked near my barn not knowing my ram guards the gate. Some people read signs, others learned the hard way. The first time I saw her, I didn't think much of it, just a woman in designer hiking boots and a floppy sun hat, walking her poodle down the county road like she was scouting for a Whole Foods. She stopped at my property line and squinted up at the big wooden post I'd sunk deep into the earth 2 decades ago. Painted in red was a sign my daddy carved himself: private land, no entry, livestock active, trespassers will be charged or chased. She didn't flinch. She took a picture of it. That should have told me everything I needed to know about what kind of woman Karen Whitmore was, but I didn't know it yet. My name's Clint, born and raised in Mason Valley, fourth generation to work this soil, and the last of my line still stubborn enough to keep the old barn standing. We're not part of any HOA, never have been, never will. But 2 years ago, a fancy housing development went up 3 miles west of us, Oak Ridge Knoll. Townies with 4-car garages and backyard fire pits. Folks who complained to City Hall if a rooster crows before 7. Karen was one of them. Only she didn't just complain. She organized, started the Community Aesthetic Initiative, printed out newsletters on lavender cardstock, held outreach meetings in the yoga studio, and now she was poking around my ranch like she was mapping it for code enforcement. That first week, she walked by 3 times, took photos every day, didn't wave, didn't say a word, just stood there like she was waiting for someone to ask her permission. I didn't bite. I figured she'd move on. She didn't. It started small, a folded piece of paper tucked into my gatepost. Your barn's exterior presents visual disharmony with the natural landscape. Please repaint to a neutral tone. No name, no logo, just a watermark of an oak leaf and a line that said Oak Ridge Visual Harmony Board, Rural Oversight Committee. I laughed out loud, tossed it in the fire pit. 3 days later, a yellow notice was taped to my cattle fence. Unregistered livestock shelter in view from public road. Must be relocated or screened by foliage. That one ticked me off. My barn has stood in that spot since 1948. It's registered with the county, insured, and marked on every zoning map in the system. She was trying to provoke me, but I wasn't about to swing first. Then she crossed the line. Literally, I came back from the feed store that Thursday afternoon to find the pasture gate unlatched, swinging wide in the breeze, boot prints in the dirt, and my ram, Thunder, standing halfway down the slope, looking pissed off and confused. Thunder isn't just a ram, he's the ram, 4 years old, 290 pounds of muscle, stubborn as hell, and smarter than most folks I went to high school with. He guards the property better than any German Shepherd I ever owned. He don't attack, but he don't tolerate fools, especially the kind that smell like Chanel and trespass without asking. I walked the trail to the barn and saw more boot prints. Karen's, most likely thin tread, shallow heel, and near the water trough, a white piece of paper, torn and smeared with mud. Unsanctioned structure. Consider this your final warning. Final warning, that did it. I rode straight to town and filed a complaint for trespass. Sheriff Burns took one look at the flyer and sighed. Karen again. Again, I asked. He nodded. You're the 5th rancher this month. She's been slapping those flyers all over the county, talking about some new HOA expansion ordinance. I narrowed my eyes. There is no ordinance. He nodded. Exactly. Turns out, Karen had been printing up documents with fake legalese, handing them out like candy at every house with more than one tractor or a fence older than 15 years. Most folks just threw them out. But I wasn't most folks. I asked Burns to log the complaint. Then I went home and posted new signs on both gates. Private property, aggressive ram on patrol. Trespass at your own risk. Thunder watched me hammer the last post in, snorted like he understood every word. 2 days later, Karen came back, and this time, she didn't stop at the fence. Sunday morning started quiet. Too quiet. No wind. No birds. Just the sound of the pasture gate creaking in the distance. I was in the middle of my coffee when Thunder's bell rang once sharp and high, like he'd bolted from his post. That ram don't ring his bell unless something ain't right. I threw on my boots, grabbed my hat, and headed down the gravel path toward the barn. Halfway there, I saw it, the gate latch cut clean, the sign torn in half, tossed in the grass like trash, and then like a scene out of some backwards suburban action movie, Karen Whitmore stood inside my fence line, one foot in the mud, the other planted firm like she owned the earth beneath it. She had gloves on, clipboard in hand, aviator sunglasses, and for some reason, a gardening trowel. "You're trespassing," I called out. She didn't even flinch. "I'm surveying violations. You're not with the county. You're not with code. And this land is clearly marked. Now get off it," before she waved me off like a gnat. "I don't answer to you." That's when Thunder stepped into view. Now, to the untrained eye, Thunder looks like a slightly oversized sheep. Curly horns, big head, kind of cute if he's chewing grass and keeping to himself. But when he walks sideways, eyes fixed, shoulders tensed. That's not a sheep. That's a missile with wool. And Karen just kept talking. "I've been very patient," she snapped. "But this barn violates setback aesthetics and disturbs the visual line from the Eastern Trail. The HOA has passed a visual code amendment, and lady, this ain't your HOA." Thunder pawed the ground. She took a step closer to the barn. That's when I shouted, "Step away from the barn." She turned. "Excuse me." Then Thunder lowered his head and charged. I've seen bulls move slower. Thunder didn't let out a sound, just a full-body sprint, horns down, targeting the most arrogant violation the ranch had ever seen. Karen turned at the last second and screamed. Too late. His head caught her square in the hip, lifted her right off her fancy boots, and sent her sprawling into the mud pile beside the broken fence board she'd pried open. Her sunglasses flew, her clipboard snapped. The gardening trowel spun through the air and landed, perfectly, in the watering trough. She sat there, stunned, legs twisted, hair matted with hay and dirt, looking up like she'd just been smacked by God. Thunder stood over her, didn't move, didn't snort, just stared, like he was waiting for her to say something dumb again. She whimpered, tried to crawl backward, one boot stuck in the mud. I whistled once, sharp. Thunder backed off. I walked up slow, boots crunching, voice steady. "I told you not to come past the gate." She shook her head. You can't," he attacked me. "He's livestock," I said flatly. "On private land, guarding his enclosure. You'll be hearing from my lawyers." She spit, wiping muck off her face. "You'll be hearing from the sheriff." Again. I helped her up because I'm not a monster, but I didn't apologize. And I didn't offer her water. I just said, "Go home." And she did. This time, but something in her eyes told me the bruises weren't going to knock any sense into her. They were going to make her madder. And I was right. The next morning, I had a citation nailed to my fence post. Actual nail. Big ugly roofing spike, driven straight through the cedar. The official document read, "Critical Noncompliance Notice. Unregistered livestock patrol animal. Dangerous infrastructure proximity. Unsanitary runoff risk. Final deadline for remediation 10 days. Failure to comply will result in HOA intervention and possible seizure. Oak Ridge Knoll, Rural Oversight and Safety Committee." I looked it over. She even forged a watermark this time, looked like a county seal, but it was off-center and spelled enforcement wrong. It would have been laughable, except it was stapled to every property gate for 2 miles. Bo got one, so did the Millers, so did that widow on the next ridge with 6 alpacas and a goat named Soup. Karen was escalating. She wasn't just playing fake cop, now she was trying to build a fake government, and folks were scared. Bo called me that night, voice tight. She told my wife that she had a list, said we were all part of a rural negligence zone, that she was authorized to mark our properties. I took a deep breath. "We need to get ahead of this." He paused. "What do you want to do?" I looked out at the barn, at Thunder, sleeping like a king under the stars. "We're going to bring the real law." By Tuesday morning, The valley was buzzing. People weren't just annoyed anymore. They were scared. The citations Karen had nailed to everyone's gates looked official enough to make the average landowner pause, especially the older folks, especially the ones without internet. She'd added QR codes too. They led to a site called Oak Ridge Oversight Portal, where she had built pages for each ranch, labeling them with color-coded flags, red for dangerous, orange for unsightly, yellow for compliance watch. My barn was marked red, Bo's property, orange. The site listed fines owed, pending reviews, and upcoming enforcement visits. And next to all of that, a donate button. The whole thing looked like some dystopian bureaucracy designed by someone who once read a zoning manual and mistook it for the Bible. I printed screenshots, made copies of the signs, took photos of the damaged latch, the broken gate, the footprint trail across my alfalfa line. Then I called the sheriff. Sheriff Burns showed up himself. He brought Deputy Alvarez, a state code officer, and a camera crew from the Regional Enforcement Division. Real professionals. When I handed him the forged citation, he just whistled. She put a county watermark on this, I nodded. Spelled enforcement wrong too. He turned to Alvarez. That enough for a forgery charge? Absolutely. Then I pulled out the kicker. The security cam footage, Thunder's pasture camera, the one angled from the east fence, which caught the entire incident 2 days ago, from Karen prying the gate, to her stepping into the barn's shadow, to Thunder charging and bowling her into the mud like it was Ram football Sunday. The sound of her scream as she flew 6 feet across the dirt made Alvarez flinch. Burns didn't laugh, but he smirked. Let me guess, he said. She didn't tell the ER she was trespassing when they treated her bruise. Didn't say anything at all. I said, didn't know she got treated. She did. Alvarez added, checked in under the name KW, claims she slipped on a trail rock. Figures. Karen couldn't even be honest with her own x-ray. But the moment things really shifted was when the sheriff's office sent a legal notice to the email address listed on her fake portal. We didn't wait long for a response. That night, Karen marched straight up to my front gate again with a manila envelope and an attitude. I was sitting on the porch. Bo and Alvarez were leaning on the fence, sipping sweet tea. Thunder was resting under the cottonwood tree like a sentinel. Karen didn't even hesitate. You think this is funny? She snapped, waving the envelope. You sicked your little watchdogs on me because you can't follow basic compliance protocol. I stood, that little watchdog is the sheriff, and your protocol is forged. I'm trying to create safety in this community, she shouted. No, I said, you're creating fear, and that stops now. She stepped closer. I've been in contact with legal counsel, Karen. Alvarez interrupted. We know you made the site. We know you forged the seals. And we know you've been collecting money from residents for a code that doesn't exist. Her face paled. I was organizing, educating. Sheriff Burns stepped out from behind the barn. You're under investigation for fraud, impersonation of a public officer, forgery of legal documents, and trespassing on protected agricultural land. And depending on how that little website of yours was hosted, maybe wire fraud too. Karen froze. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. Burns added, and we've got the footage of the ram, of the flyers, of you saying I don't answer to you before stepping through a locked gate. I expected her to run. She didn't. She snapped. You hicks think your land makes you untouchable? She shouted, voice cracking. Well, guess what? I'm cleaning this place up. One trashy fence and tin barn at a time. Burns nodded. To jail you go then. She was cuffed right there at the gate. Thunder got up, snorted once, and flopped back down. The very next day, the oversight portal was shut down. The DA issued a statement calling it a bold but deeply misguided attempt to manufacture authority over unincorporated communities using fraudulent methods and forged county imagery. Burns called it something else. She wanted to be queen of a kingdom that didn't exist, and she almost got away with it. But that's not the end, because what Karen did wasn't just about my ranch. She'd built a model, something she was preparing to expand. Deputy Alvarez pulled documents from her laptop suggesting she had plans to branch into 3 other rural counties with compliance field offices, structured newsletters, and door-to-door compliance agents. Her ambition wasn't just delusional, it was dangerous. She preyed on people's silence, their confusion, their desire to just keep the peace, and it worked until a ram knocked her straight into the truth. After the arrest, things didn't go quiet, they got loud, but this time for the right reasons. News traveled faster than a prairie fire with a tailwind. By sundown, every porch from Mason Ridge to Sweetwater Creek was buzzing about the HOA lady who got flattened by a ram and arrested at the gate. And for the first time in months, folks were laughing about it. But behind the laughter was something deeper relief. Karen's arrest gave people permission to speak up. It turned out dozens of Valley residents had been targeted in ways they hadn't told anyone about. Anonymous letters, threatening flyers, review notices with forged county stamps, even surprise yard audits from a small group of clipboard-carrying neighbors who claimed to be liaisons of the Oversight Committee. They weren't. They were Karen's volunteers, or what she called in her internal docs field enforcers. And worse, she'd made some of them believe they were acting legally. Folks like Mr. Simmons, an 80-year-old retired teacher who thought he was helping with community safety when he walked up to properties and photographed sheds. He broke down at the community hall when we showed him the truth. I thought I was helping. He said, she told me there were health codes being violated, that it was all approved. It wasn't, and now the whole community knew it. Sheriff Burns hosted a public town forum the following week just to set the record straight. People came from miles out, ranchers, retirees, single moms, veterans, young couples who just wanted peace and a fence line that stayed put. The DA showed up too. So did 3 county commissioners. Burns laid it out clearly. Karen had no legal standing. Her citations were fraudulent. Her oversight committee was not registered, elected, or recognized. And any money collected under those pretenses was now part of a criminal investigation. Then he gave the crowd something they didn't expect, a chance to testify. Right there. Open mic. No cameras. Just neighbors. And one by one, they stood. Bo told the story of the time Karen marked his barn unsafe for visual integrity because the wood had aged unevenly on one side. Mrs. Wynn, who raises ferrets for special needs therapy, shared how Karen had demanded she remove all scent-producing mammals from view of the public trail under threat of HOA fine. She lived 2 miles outside the HOA line. An ex-Marine named Randall stood up and held a torn flyer with the words, "Non-compliant perimeter, final warning" scrawled across the top in red ink. "She put this on my son's treehouse," he said, voice shaking. He built that treehouse himself. The room went silent. Then it erupted in applause. Not at Karen, at the fact that people were finally standing together. Out of that meeting came action. Real action. First, a civil class action lawsuit was filed led by the DA's office and joined by over 60 residents who had been targeted, fined, harassed, or defrauded. Then, the county commissioners passed Emergency Resolution 47B, which did the following: required all HOAs to file public boundaries annually with the county, made it a misdemeanor to impersonate a municipal authority, criminalized the distribution of citations or fines that aren't directly backed by county or state code, and made false code enforcement on private land a chargeable offense with up to a year in jail and a $5,000 fine. They named it the Karen Clause. It passed unanimously, but something even better happened. We came together. We started our own rural stewardship circle, no fines, no flyers, just neighbors helping neighbors. Someone needs a barn fix done. Got questions about zoning? We'll get the real answers. We printed official signs to protect against future nonsense. They say private property, protected by county law, not subject to HOA oversight. All inquiries must be filed through official channels. We even had a picnic. We called it the Ram Justice Barbecue. Thunder was the guest of honor. He got a custom-made apple oat cake and a leather collar with his name engraved on it. People took selfies with him next to a cardboard cutout of Karen's original compliance warning. Bo made shirts. They read, "Don't cross the fence. Thunder might be home." As for Karen, she remained in custody awaiting trial. Her bail was denied. Too many risks. Too many lies. And the feds were sniffing around now too, especially after they uncovered financial records showing she had collected over $28,000 in fees through her fake site, most of it from people over 65. She faced charges for forgery, wire fraud, harassment, trespassing, criminal impersonation of a public official, and conspiracy to commit racketeering. The maximum sentence, 15 years. But none of that brought back the peace she took. We had to do that ourselves. The courtroom was full. Press, ranchers, legal aides, even a couple of state officials stood along the back wall. Pens in hand, phones silent, not a whisper in the air. Karen sat at the defense table in a gray blazer. Thinner now, her hair pulled back too tight, eyes flickering toward every sound. She hadn't said much since her arrest. Not in public, not even in her initial interviews. Her attorney tried to play it like she'd been misunderstood, overzealous civic interest. He called it, but the jury didn't buy that. Not when the prosecution showed the website with the fake county seals. Not when they played the video of her crossing the fence, tearing the sign down, and walking into my barn pasture before getting knocked flat by 290 pounds of fury and fleece. Not when they read emails she'd sent to her field enforcers, using phrases like, "push harder on the outer properties, they're old and won't fight back," or "this one rural non-HOA zones are unregulated gold mines." Frame it like public protection. Use the kids if you have to. She wrote that, in writing, on a server registered under her name. She was found guilty on all counts. 6 charges at the county level, 3 more at the state level, sentenced to 11 years, with no parole for the first 6, $64,000 in restitution, 3 years of post-release supervision if she ever steps foot in a rural county again, and a permanent ban from holding any form of neighborhood leadership or housing board position in the state of Texas. The judge didn't raise his voice when he gave the sentence. He didn't need to. He said one thing that stuck with everyone. You did not build order. You built a weapon, and you aimed it at the people least equipped to see it coming. Karen was let out in cuffs, and for the first time in months, no one clapped. We just sat there, breathing. Finally. 3 weeks later, we held a ceremony at the edge of the pasture. Nothing fancy. Just a new wooden sign we carved ourselves, posted right at the gate Karen broke. It reads, "Respect the line, protect the land. Thunder still watches." Bo gave a toast. Mrs. Wynn read a short poem. And Maddox, the deputy from the story before mine, came up from the next county over with his little brother and said, "I heard y'all had a ram who handled business better than most badge wearers I know." We laughed, but we knew what he meant. Thunder's still with us. Slower now, but still sharp. Still takes his post by the gate in the morning, snorting at dust, watching the birds, chewing grass like he's thinking through a court case. We treat him like royalty. Because in a world where people like Karen can forge authority, forge documents, even forge fear, Thunder reminded us what real defense looks like. Not anger, not violence, just a clear boundary and the guts to hold it. We've added a new page to the Rural Stewardship Circle. It's called Know the Signs. It teaches folks how to recognize false authority, how to report threats from fake HOAs, how to say no without shame or fear, because what happened to us, it's still happening. Different towns and different names, same blueprint, a person who wants to rule what isn't theirs. But here in Mason Valley, we don't play that anymore. We know our lines, and now we protect them together. Not all abuse wears a badge. Some wear yoga pants and carry clipboards. Some use big words and fake seals. And some count on your silence more than anything else. Don't give it to them. If someone threatens your peace, ask who gave them that power. If they can't answer with law, it isn't law. And if they cross your line, well, maybe they should ask themselves if Thunder's watching. Have you ever dealt with fake authority HOA overreach? Someone trying to own what's yours with nothing but paper and noise. Share your story below, and let's remind the world property doesn't make you powerful. Respect does.